Hello, I'm Elizabeth Molina, and this presentation will focus on the Cold War and the conflicts that arose in youth rebellion, gender equality, and the rejection of social norms. Following the ending of World War II, world power shifted to the United States and the Soviet Union. France, Germany, and England were in shambles from the war, and this gave new opportunity for neighboring countries. Unfortunately, the Soviets and the Americans were not on the same page politically and ideologically, as the Soviets were aggressively anti-democratic. Since these two countries were openly hostile towards each other, an arms war was at risk, but because both were hesitant to begin such a fight, it was deemed the Cold War due to no fire being initiated. The fear of a communist America brought the country together, so much so that Americans viewed interaction with a communist more than a street criminal, and for some people, more than a minority. Ethnic association was shucked off during this Red Scare that dominated the social world in search for communists, and because of this, down a suburban street you could find foreign-born Americans neighbored next to an average white American. The rejection of this social norm umbrellas the gender equality and the rebellion of the youth during these times because within these subjects, a social norm was also being rejected. Beginning post-Great Depression and during the Cold War, a baby boom took place, an anomaly that is still not explained and has scientists baffled. Albeit, this resulted in a dramatically high increase in children and families being created. The role for women in the household was extremely significant in raising such large families, as they had such little help, and in many ways they were shaping the generation to come. However, women were also seen in the workplace, as a household with multiple incomes allowed a better lifestyle in terms of materialism and education for their children. This also turned into a status competition, as women liked to claim a high social appearance, and having a job helped them to do so. Although women found fulfillment in having a job alongside their husbands for once, the pay was still a representation of the inequality between genders, and around 70% of women still found their main occupation to be at home. This domestic lifestyle was seen as less suspicious socially as well, because women with occupations had stronger economic status and independence, both sexually and professionally. This was seen as a danger to the common man and was depicted as a downfall in political war with the Soviets. Women were gaining inches of freedom, but with that came social backlash, as history showed multiple times. Along with this change seen in gender equality, the Cold War fertility surge resulted in babies born into a world different from the one their parents knew, one with less hardship and a president who could calm down the scare of communism in Americans. Things appeared more carefree, and this was seen in the way these baby boomers aged. Teenagers of the 60s started a movement deemed the counterculture, and this included drug experimentation and festivals and unspiritual rides, sexual freedom from music and individualism, and vulgar mass media. In terms of mass media, the television made its appearance in many suburban households, and this was a great outlet for people to follow the news related to the Soviets and possible war outbreaks, as the paranoia was still very real. Television proved very able to shape how people think and the ideals they take on, and following a large audience upset regarding Cold War political views and initiatives, television programmers decided to cut political airtime and instead showed programs such as dramas, comedies, and sports. These programs dramatically shaped the teenage eyes that watched them, considering small specials like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi battles resulted in people wanting to drink a beverage that was deemed more hip and alongside the status quo. Teenagers during the 60s grew up with more than what their parents had, and they had more opportunity for open-minded thinking. This resulted in them questioning the standards that were put into place, such as respectable speech, modest clothing, and elegant music. All of these were challenged with slang, crazy outfits, and rock and roll respectively. The youth rebellion was met with discontent, and adults described them as poorly dressed, lacking ambition, and irresponsible, some things that were also said of minorities in the lower class. Another change in social norm brought on by the rebellious youth was an appreciation for rock and roll, a new genre of music that was chaotic and loud and different. The popular advocate for this was none other than Elvis Presley, the hip-thrusting rock and roll legend. Parents disliked his tight wardrobe and his deep voice, but teenagers used his music as an outlet to further embrace their carefree nature and exploration. The Cold War allowed these conflicts to fall in a domino effect, beginning with the unity and American pride, when communism was in its wake, while also providing a more able environment for a later generation to question things their parents originally put into motion.